I'm looking up the word liberty in the Oxford English Dictionary. I've marked the space so I can find it. Here it is. Liberty. I'll tell you why in a moment. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, it says liberty, the state of being free from oppression or imprisonment, a right or privilege, especially a statutory one, or the power or scope to act as one pleases. A presumption remark or action, a presumptuous remark or action, or the nautical one, shore leave granted to a sailor, liberty. So that's what the Oxford English Dictionary says, and it sounds reasonable, doesn't it? But let's have a look here. This is Black Law's Dictionary. Let's have a look at what the legal profession, these dead corporations, the courts and the magistrates and all the different courts that run under the private bar guild, who go by these sort of legal dictionaries with their legal definitions, which is very different in many cases from what we think of the language that we use. So let's have a look what it says here for liberty. Just got to find where it is. Here we go, liberty. So there's a number of definitions that they give. Freedom from arbitrary or undue external restraint, especially by a government. Give me liberty or give me death, says somebody. A right, a privilege, a immunity enjoyed by prescription or by grant. The absence of a legal duty imposed on a person. It's interesting, isn't it? Because all of those meanings there, liberty is given to you by an authority of some description. That means that there's somebody above you who's able to give you that liberty. Now, it's interesting because the reason I mention this is I was in the pub with the lovely Julia the other day, and there was a woman singing, and it was quite nice. It's nice to see people singing, and she was singing about freedom, apparently, and one of the verses that she sang was peace, love and liberty. And that made me wince because I knew that liberty basically meant an artificial freedom, isn't it? Somebody in authority is giving you liberty. You can now go and do this for a certain amount of time. I'm giving you permission. And the problem with that is it's a sort of a legalese type word. It's that word that somebody somewhere is giving you permission to be free. It's part of the slave mind. We've all grown up with the slave mind. We've all put our hands up, haven't we? And when we were at school and said, please, please, can I go to the loo? We've all sought permission. We've all been told, speak when you're spoken to, by our teachers and by our grown-ups. And the education system has taught us to be good slaves so that when we leave school, we can go off and join these corporations with their hierarchies of people above you, peering down, your line manager and so forth, and everyone telling you what to do. And we've become very good slaves, and we've not thought of ourselves as actually private individuals who should, in theory, be free. We should be free. We should be free to do whatever we like. After all, we're all born the same, aren't we? So what gives somebody else the right to be above us and to tell us? Well, the only way that anybody can give you the right to be above you is if you agree to it. And you might agree to it. You might agree to it if you're playing a game, for example. You agree to the rules of the game, don't you? And in a way, you're a sort of godlike character when you set up the game. Let's say you're setting up a game of Monopoly. And when you go to play Monopoly, you set up and you put all the counters. At that point, you are free. You've decided you're going to play this game. As soon as you enter the game, you've got to play by the rules of that game. You're agreeing with all the other people to play by those rules. By the way, I don't know why people play Monopoly. Who always wins in Monopoly? The banker. Nobody else wins. The banker always wins. So it's sort of a silly game to play, really. But even if it's Tiddlywinks or Ludo or Snakes and Ladders, the moment you start to encounter that game, you can only play it with the counters and the way the game is played. And then that becomes the limitations that you have. And it seems to me this is what we've got in life at the moment. We're all playing a game. We've entered the game. We've allowed a government, for example, to tell us how to do things. They enact their legislation. They agree on a bunch of stuff. They make their promises, of course, when you elect them or when you vote for them, which again is another slave mind thing. I'm voting rather than actually electing. The illusion is that you've elected a government, but you didn't have the choice to begin with, did you? You didn't. You were given the candidates you could vote for. You didn't put forward the candidates you wanted to elect. You might have chosen somebody far, far better, but they give you a bunch of candidates who are not fit for government in the first place, and then they ask you to vote for them, which is a very much a slave mentality. Here you go, this is all you get, instead of going, well, actually, these people over here would be far, far better. I want to elect them. No, 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 that's not the rules of the game. You've got to play the rules of the game, you idiot. And so we all agree and we all do it. And it seems to me that that is the problem, that we have this slave mind and we all think, yeah, these are the rules of the game. And we don't think outside of the box. And this is where, as I say, when you're outside of the box, before you set up the board and all the counters, before you start playing the game, you're free. Because you're free to say, I don't want to play Ludo, I don't want to play Snakes and Ladders, I don't want to play Monopoly, I want to play this game. And this is the game I want to play. Better still, I've invented my own game. And then get everybody else to agree to how you play that game. But once you are inside the box, once you're inside the game, you've acquiesced, you've given jurisdiction, you've agreed, you've given consent. I will play by those rules. And so, in a way, this is what we've got. We're all playing by these rules that we've agreed to. And the only way, of course, the governments can get you to play by the rules that they want, that they've decided, because after all, their manifesto gets torn up the minute they get into power and they start giving you stuff and treating you as if you are subservient to them, even though we're paying for them and they are supposedly to be our servants. But it is actually the other way round. They know that they are our masters. And the way that they know that they're our masters is we keep consenting to it. We keep agreeing to it. So here in the UK, on the 7th of November, Parliament starts again. We had this very strange situation in which the King prorogued Parliament at the end of October, just before Halloween. And then there's this very strange period in which I don't know what was happening and I don't know who was in charge. I don't even know whether we had the opportunity to say, actually, do you know what? You've left your post, you've abandoned ship, maybe we should be in charge of the government. I did make a video on that and I don't know whether anybody really took it seriously or not, but I made the point I didn't know who was in charge. Anyway, the new Parliament starts from the 7th. And it seems to me that, that in the proroguing of Parliament, the King has effectively given the royal assent to a bunch of new rules of new games that he wants to play, that the government will enact, and with their thugs and their paperwork and all of that, try and force upon us. But it is for us to say yay or nay at the end of the day, because we are living men and women. We are not these players, you know, how you are in Monopoly, where you're the top hat or the dog or the ship or the car. This is where we become the players of the game. You see, as we've spoken about with that legal persona, the legal fiction that we've mentioned many times, that's set up so that when a bill comes in, or your tax demand, or your council tax, or your bank details, everything is in capital letters, your name. The person that you think you are, you're actually a living man or woman with flesh and blood, and you're nameless, let's face it, you are in fact nameless spirit inside this body of flesh and blood, having a human experience. So you're not this capitalized name that comes on a bit of paper. That effectively is these counters on the game that you've decided or agreed to take part in. So when you see your name and it says in big capital letters, in my case Richard Vobes, it's actually referring to one of these counters. Maybe it's the dog or the top hat. I quite like the top hat. I'll be the top hat. And it sort of goes with my sense of dress. But it might be a ship or a car or whatever. That's really what that is. That name is just these characters that you're playing. And in the game, as you throw the dice of chance and you go around the board, it's all within these rules. And so the me, that's actually the living man that's playing the game, isn't really in the game. I'm just playing, I'm acting it out, aren't I? I'm just acting out according to a dice, which again is artificial because it's only got 6 options, 6 opportunities. In real life, you have far more opportunities than just those limits that you've got. And again, in the game itself, you're limited to the shape of the board and the places you can land on. You can't start saying, well, I'll take my top hat and go over here. No, that's the table, that's the fruit bowl. No, you just suddenly put it on the wood-burning stove. You can't do that. You have to stay within the game. That's the rules. See what I mean by when you get that capitalized name, you think it's you, but it's not you. It's just a character in this game, the game that the government play, the legislation game, if you like. So when the 7th of November comes and they bang on the door and they say, oh, we've passed this energy bill, you've got to have a smart meter. If you agree to this, if you say, oh, right, okay, yeah, no problem, come in and have it, you're agreeing to them to monitor you with the Wi-Fi that's coming out of the smart meter, which is not particularly good for your health anyway because of the radiation. You're agreeing that they can look at all your applications in the house and monitor how much electricity, gathering data. And especially going down into the history when we get more into the Internet of Things, where everything will be monitored, it will send that data somewhere. And this is your private data. Why should they know any of these things? Oh no, because it's convenient, of course. This is how it's sold to you. It's very convenient. You know, we don't have to knock on your door and say, can you give us a reading? Or you don't have to read the meter anymore and ring it up and tell us or put it in online. We can get it automatically. It's very convenient. Well, sometimes that convenience is actually working against us. So if we allow them to do this, we've basically said, yes, you know, we're a slave. Yes, of course, you have control of me. But if you live in the private, if you don't live in the public, in the game, if you stay out of the game, you're out of the box, you're out of the rules of all of this, and you say, no, I don't agree to any of this, thanks very much. If you have already agreed, you can turn around and say, well, actually, do you know what? I no longer agree. I no longer give you my consent because I am the master of my world. I'm the executor of my trust. You're the trustee. You can play the game if you so wish, but I'm out of the game. And that's very much what I want to explore more of in this channel, understanding and becoming out of the game, out in the private. Away from these silly rules and these regulations, the slave mind. I want to explore more about this because nobody really wants to be given liberty. Liberty is, as it says in the Blacklaw's Dictionary, it's granted to you by someone else. But if you're free, if you're truly free, nobody grants you that freedom. You already have it. You don't need to protest and beg for your rights. You already have them. You're free. You are the master of your own domain. Your house is your castle, and everybody else can keep the hell out. And so that's what I want to look at. Let's not play this game where you're somebody else all the time at the mercy of those people who write the rules. Let's be free, all of us, and write our own rules for our own life, keeping in harmony, of course, with natural law and doing no harm.